Will the Raiders repeat the same mistake they've made with previous head coaching hires? What's up? This is Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff. On today's show, is a failed head coach the right move for the Raiders again? What about a trade for Mike Tomlin? Plus, Mitch Marner plays the Toronto Maple Leafs for the first time, and Dante Moore has made the #1 pick even more valuable. Big shout out to Battle Blast Las Vegas for sponsoring the show, the best laser tag in Las Vegas. Here we go. The Raiders need a new coach, and they might hire another retread head coach. The Raiders have had to hire a new coach every year since coming to Vegas. It certainly feels like that. And they've tried a few different paths, but one of the main things that they've done repeatedly is hiring a former head coach, right? They did it with John Gruden. He was the first coach here in Vegas. Then we saw it again with Josh McDaniels, and then one more time with Pete Carroll. And none of those has worked. Now, to be fair, they hired Antonio Pierce, who had never been a head coach before, and it didn't work out. It was a disaster. Granted, he had never even been a coordinator, so there's a big chasm there between Antonio Pierce and everything else that they hired or could have hired. But hiring the former head coach, and specifically the former head coach that didn't work anymore, has been something the Raiders have tried repeatedly. Now, ESPN's Dan Graziano, he wrote a story where he predicted a new head coach for all of the openings in the NFL. Now, important note, he did this before the Steelers job opened up with Mike Tomlin leaving, so at the time it was only 7 jobs. But for the Raiders, he landed on Robert Saleh, the current defensive coordinator of the 49ers. Former head coach of the New York Jets. When Saleh was the head coach with the Jets, he never had a winning record. He was 20-36 and was fired 5 games into his 4th season. Now, for Robert Saleh, if you look at his current job as 49ers defensive coordinator, they're 24th in EPA per play on defense this season. That's worse than the Raiders. The Raiders defense was 20th in EPA per play. San Francisco gave up more yards per play this season. The Raiders did give up more points, but it's probably fair to blame that on how bad the offense was and how little time they spent on the field, especially compared to what the 49ers offense does. The positive side for Robert Saleh is if you look at his time with the Jets, and again, using EPA per play, the Jets were dead last in the NFL on defense in Robert Saleh's first season as their head coach. His second season, they jumped all the way up to 6th in EPA per play. His third season, they were 3rd. And at the time he got fired in his 4th year, they were 4th. So he had this team defensively playing very, very well. Now, the offense was bad, but he got the defense playing well. And right now, if I told you the Raiders are going to have a bad defense in 2026, but in 2027 and 2028, you're going to be top 10. That's an easy yes. That's a yeah, we'll take it. You get this, this defense to top 10 for back-to-back years? Yes, you will take that immediately, right? But Saleh was also a defensive coordinator before taking the Jets head coaching job. And similarly, his first 2 seasons in San Francisco as the DC, bad defenses. His last 2 years before he took the Jets job were good defenses. And if you look at it as a whole, when he's been a defensive coordinator or a head coach, he's had 4 bad years, 4 good years, and then 1 partial year where he got fired 5 games in that was good. So it's kind of 50-50. The optimistic side, you look at it and say, okay, well, his first years were bad, but once he had been there for 2, maybe 3 years, that's when the defense started to take off. But here's the issue. Robert Saleh has already gotten the head coaching job where he gets paired with a high draft pick quarterback, and it doesn't work, right? It was Zach Wilson at the time. If you listen to this show throughout the week, you'll know that Zach Wilson and Fernando Mendoza had very similar senior seasons or final seasons at the college level. But Robert Saleh took over the Jets. They used a 2nd overall pick on Zach Wilson, and the offense was terrible. Fun fact, Mike LaFleur was the offensive coordinator for those first 2 years. Mike LaFleur might be a head coach at some point in the NFL, a guy who is apparently very well respected as an offensive mind in the NFL. So they had, in theory, the defensive-minded head coach, a good offensive coordinator, and the high draft pick at quarterback, and it didn't work. So the Raiders would be doing the same exact thing, and you'd be hoping that Fernando Mendoza is better than Zach Wilson. It's not much of a stretch to think that he will be, but that's what's going to happen. And Robert Saleh is going to have to hire a good offensive coordinator, which this is, I think, the big problem when it comes to hiring any defensive-minded head coach. For that to work out, if you're going to hire a defensive-minded head coach, that means three things have to go your way. One, that head coach has to be good. Two, he's got to go hire a good offensive coordinator. And three, Mendoza has to work out. Now, Mendoza has to work out for the next coach to be successful no matter who it is. That's the reality of this job. But if you hire a defensive-minded head coach, you're adding in the need to hire a good offensive coordinator. Whereas if you just hire the offensive-minded coach, you don't have to hire an offensive coordinator. You got him right there. You got the offensive play caller, and now defense is not as important in the NFL to winning. That's been proven out, and it fluctuates a lot more from year to year. Robert Saleh showed it from 32nd up to 6th in 1 year. So I would not be interested in a defensive-minded head coach with Fernando Mendoza coming in. Some other predictions, by the way, from Dan Graziano as he went through those. The Cardinals were the team to land Clint Kubiak. The Falcons were the team to land John Harbaugh. Kevin Stefanski was going to Baltimore, Mike McDaniel to Cleveland, Chris Shula to Miami, Jeff Hafley to New York, and Matt Nagy to Tennessee. I'm a little disappointed. It's a little uncreative because of the 8 openings. He had 3 going to head coaches that just got fired and 2 more going to coordinators who were previously head coaches. Only 3 names on there, haven't been a head coach at all anywhere. A little more exciting there. Now, the coaching news of the week, though, was in Pittsburgh where Mike Tomlin stepped down. Wasn't fired, which is a key detail because the Steelers still have his rights. So if Mike Tomlin wants to coach anywhere else, you have to go and trade for him. You can't just hire Mike Tomlin right now. You have to go and trade for him. I know there was a report from Ian Rappaport that teams had reached out to the Steelers about Mike Tomlin, and he is not coaching or doesn't want to coach somewhere this upcoming season. Maybe after that, but this upcoming season, he does not want to coach. He's probably going to be on television, so he's not coaching anywhere this season. But this is sort of the question that I'm curious from a Raiders perspective. You have this offseason where the Ravens' job is open and it's the best available job. They've got the quarterback in place. That's the one place you know you can walk into and be a contender right away. That's the best job available. Then you have all these other jobs that are pretty similar, but the Raiders have the first overall pick. So in theory, the Raiders have a more attractive job than just about everybody else. But are the Steelers a better job? Like, it's been a great franchise. They don't fire coaches, unlike the Raiders. They don't fire coaches. Like, is it a better job than the Raiders? And I don't think it is, because both teams should be rebuilding now. The Raiders, however, have the number 1 pick in the draft. The Raiders, I mean, they don't know yet, but the Raiders know Fernando Mendoza is going to be their quarterback next season. Who's Pittsburgh's quarterback? Like, in all seriousness, who's playing quarterback for the Steelers next season? Are they reaching on Ty Simpson in the first round? Are they going after who's the next Aaron Rodgers they can get? Is Kirk Cousins, right? Like, I mean, that's going to be the choice? Kirk Cousins? Geno Smith? Like, who is going to be their quarterback? Is it Tua? They don't know. Like, they don't have a good answer. The Raiders have a good answer. Well, we'll see if it's good. But the Raiders have an answer that you can be excited about in Fernando Mendoza. The Steelers don't have that. And so you have 2 organizations that neither one's really close to winning a Super Bowl. I know the Steelers were much, much closer this year, but they were never going to win the Super Bowl. And one of them has in place a great opportunity to quarterback. The other one doesn't. So, like, if it were me, I would be more interested in the Raiders' job than the Steelers' job. To be fair, ownership here is bad, and ownership in Pittsburgh is a lot more stable and has looked a lot more competent, right? You make a bad hire in there, and then all of a sudden ownership doesn't look quite as good. But I guess as a coach, if your priority was sort of ownership stability or ownership competency, which is important if you're the coach, that's your boss, then Pittsburgh could absolutely be more enticing than Las Vegas. I can buy that argument. But if I'm a coach, I'm a little less worried about that because if I win, how much does the owner matter? Like, I know he's my boss, but if I win, the whole dysfunction around the Raiders is they haven't won, and Mark Davis doesn't know who to hire and everything. But if I win, then he knew who to hire. He got one right. And I don't really have to worry about everything else. Is Tom Brady a negative if you're taking this job? It's possible that he is. It's possible some coach looks out there and says, the guy who does the Pizza Hut commercials and doesn't show up to the building has authority over things the organization does. So there are some negatives that Pittsburgh would definitely be better than. But I think the Fernando Mendoza and the number one pick, I think those things make the Raiders more attractive. You do have to be willing. You absolutely have to be willing to rebuild, which Pittsburgh's, their owner came out and said they're not going to rebuild. Yeah, okay, whatever. Have fun with Tua playing quarterback. Somehow they won the division this year. But yeah, like, I got it. But the Steelers should be rebuilding as well. I guess if you as a coach wanted the Pete Carroll mindset of this past year, where it's just like, we're going to try to win every game and 9-8's cool. All right, go to Pittsburgh. And if you can figure out a way to make Tua work, or Kirk Cousins, or whoever the hell it is, then okay. But if your goal is like, yeah, I want to win a Super Bowl at some point, I'd take the Raiders job. And by the way, to go back to ownership, this actually would be an important sort of view on it. What is Mark Davis and John Spytek and Tom Brady? What are they saying to coaching candidates when it comes to the timeline and like your job security? Because Spytek has said publicly, right, that this is a rebuild. He basically said, we don't expect to win 10 games next year. So in theory, like, if you take this job, you should be in really good shape to be here for 3 years, right? I think, an 0-17 season changes the math on that. But like, are they telling these candidates, hey, you come in, we go 4-13 and 5-12 in the first 2 years. Like, it's not good, but we're not firing you for that. Like, we kind of expect that. Are they telling candidates that? Or is Mark Davis over here saying, oh, we might not make it this year, but year 2, you better win 10 games for us and put us in the playoffs, right? Like, that's what I'm curious to know, because I think that would change the attractiveness of this job as well. Because if there's unrealistic expectations, then how do you take the job, right? Like, Spytek hasn't said this. I doubt the Raiders are actually saying this, but like, if you interviewed for the Raiders job and Mark Davis said, well, how do you get us to the playoffs in year 1? I might not take the job if that were the case. I'd be like, we're not? Like, what do you mean? How do we go to the playoffs? We're not going to the playoffs. And if that's your expectation, I might not take the job. Although you might get fired and then get the buyout, and that's like the dream, isn't it? So maybe I would. But that could also lead to this being a less attractive job than the Steelers and other jobs across the NFL as well.
Battle Blast, been serving Las Vegas since June 2012 with the very best in family entertainment. We are proud to provide the best facility, equipment, and service possible. Strap on laser tag vests, step into the 5,600 square foot 2-story arena designed to look like a worn, torn city street. An exciting atmosphere filled with exhilarating music, blacklight effects, and fog. Battle Blast also features a viewing deck for those not playing can watch players vest up and catch a view of the action going on in the arena. In between games, check out our arcade and prize center and enjoy tasty treats from our snack bar. Birthday parties, sports teams, group outings, and corporate events. Battle Blast does it all. We want to make your Battle Blast experience so good you'll want to return again and again. Battle Blast is the ultimate destination for family fun and friendly competition.
Bischoff's Briefs is brought to you by Battle Blast Las Vegas, the best laser tag in Vegas. Battle Blast is the best spot for your next event, whether that's your kid's birthday party, a corporate event, Little League season ends for your kids, your birthday, whatever it is. Battle Blast is the place to go. Get your friends, get your family together. Go see who's better at laser tag. Plus, they've got arcade games and prizes, giving you more than just laser tag. It's Battle Blast Las Vegas, located at 8125 West Sahara Avenue, your next stop for fun in Vegas. Big thank you to Battle Blast Las Vegas for sponsoring the show. Very happy to have that sponsorship. I need to get out and play some laser tag at Battle Blast. The Golden Knights beat the Kings last night. Obviously, the game went to overtime. It had to go to overtime. The Golden Knights have now played 45 games. 18 of them have gone to overtime. The Kings have played 46 games. 18 of them have gone to overtime. It's insane between these two how often they're going to overtime. So obviously, it didn't matter. It didn't matter who was winning. Somebody was going to score a goal late. The Kings scored with whatever, a minute and a half to go to tie the game and send it to overtime. It was just going to happen. All that was up for grabs last night was who got the extra point in overtime. And it was the Golden Knights, because Mark Stone scored, because of course he did. Mark Stone's on a crazy run right now. He scores the game winner in OT. He now has 10 goals in his last 12. It's 16 goals on the season for Stone in 29 games. So he's not going to play the full season because he was out with an injury. But Stone, his pace, an 82-game pace, is 45 goals this season. This is a guy who's only scored over 30 goals one time in his career. So 45, like that pace is insane from Mark Stone. And if you look at it, obviously, like his shooting percentage is at 23%. This is a guy whose shooting percentage is 16% for his career, right? Obviously, he's outperforming what he normally does. That shooting percentage is going to come down. It's probably not going to finish up at 23%. It's very rare for that to happen. But if you look at individual expected goals, so just basically all the shots Mark Stone has taken, how many goals should he have scored off of that? His individual expected goals is 12.3. So obviously 16 is higher than 12.3, but he's outperforming it by 3.7, which is a chunk, but it's not the craziest difference. We're not talking about Mark Stone always got 16 goals, and in reality, he probably should only be expected to put in 8 of those. No, it's still 12. It's still over 12. So there's going to be some regression, right? Like that's obviously going to happen. There's going to be some regression. Stone's not going to keep shooting and scoring this well the rest of the season, but it shouldn't be that bad, right? It shouldn't be this crazy stretch where Stone doesn't score at all, or he just can't find the back of the net. Like the regression's going to be slight, I think, because Stone's having a remarkable year, and he's not overperforming his expected numbers by that much. And by the way, the Golden Knights getting a crazy goal scoring season from Stone, exactly what they need when we've been talking about where's the goal scoring going to come from, right? Like you flame out of the playoffs because you don't score goals. You add Marner, who's not a goal scorer. You need it from somewhere. Stone just having an unbelievable run is where they could come from. Now, they need him to do this in the postseason, right? Like we won't look back and really care much about this run in December and into January if Stone doesn't have a goal in a second round exit to Edmonton or something like that. So if he does this in the playoffs, though, Golden Knights are going to win the Stanley Cup. Also, by the way, what was that from Darcy Kemper on the Golden Knights game winner in overtime? If you did not see this, the Golden Knights have a 2-on-1, Eichel's skating the puck in. Darcy Kemper ends up like below the goal line when Mark Stone gets the puck. There is just a completely open net for Mark Stone to shoot at, because was Eichel's move so good that Kemper forgot what his job was? Like just insane goaltending from Darcy Kemper there. And Stone had a wide open net to shoot in. Also, the other goal I wanted to talk about was the power play goal from Mitch Marner, because Vegas tweeted this out about how teams are taking away part of the Golden Knights power play. And the most important part, right? We've seen so much Mark Stone standing on the goal line, passes to either Dorofeyev, who's on the weak side, or Hurdle, who's right there at the top of the crease. Makes one of those two passes, and those two guys score goals, right? Like that's been the number one way the Golden Knights have scored on the power play, is that pass or those two passes from Stone. But what teams have been doing more and more is when Stone gets the puck, just having a defenseman lay down on the ice, because the length of that person takes away both the passing lane to Hurdle and to Dorofeyev. For Stone to get a pass, he's got to, put some air under it, saucer it over a body, and have it land to Pavel Dorofeyev. And if he does that, I think if you're the other team, you say, all right, good job. But it's taken that away more than we're used to seeing. First off, hilarious thing if that's the fix to stopping the Golden Knights' most dangerous pass on the power play, is just lay down. But what we saw on this Marner goal, unfortunately, nobody was laying on the ice when it happened. Then it would have been hilarious. But Stone got the puck, and instead of going to like that right near the goal post, right on the goal line position, Stone skated to the wall and created some width, right? Was stretching out as much as possible. He skates to the wall and then makes a pass straight to Mitch Marner at the top of the point. He doesn't go to Eichel first and then Marner. It's straight to Marner, which means there was a ton of space for Mitch Marner, who gets the puck at the point, to skate in. The defensemen are still worried about Tomas Hertl in the slot. Marner was completely uncontested. Skates in, nobody's near him, gets off a free shot, and scores. And that's what, like, the Golden Knights power play has been good. That pass from Stone has been the key part there. But with Eichel and Marner, really, like, they're not involved in what the Golden Knights' sort of best power play scoring opportunity is, when they're probably the two best players on the power play. Like, that's where the Golden Knights power play can still be awesome, even if defensemen lay down to take away that pass. So I thought that was interesting, and how the Golden Knights find other ways to score than just their primary pass from Stone to Hertl and Dorofeyev. Also from that game, the first period, what was that? We had more giveaways than shots on goal between these two teams. The Golden Knights had 8 giveaways and 5 shots on goal in the first period. That's horrible, right? Like, it was a mind-numbing period where nothing happened. We didn't even have the final media timeout, the TV timeout, because they didn't have a face-off for the final, like, 7 minutes of that period. There were only 7 face-offs in the entire period because nothing happened. They just sort of skated around, giving it back to each other in the neutral zone. Second and third period were pretty fun, right? The Golden Knights actually had 5 shots on goal, the same amount in the first period as they did in the first minute and 50 seconds of the second period. So they got a lot better, played a lot better in those last 2 periods and then overtime. Tonight, it's a back-to-back for the Golden Knights, but they come home. Tonight, we get to see Mitch Marner play against Toronto. First time he'll play against Toronto. Golden Knights traded for Marner from Toronto in the offseason. He goes back to Toronto a little bit later this month, January 23rd. So that'll be the probably more fun one to watch, given how much Maple Leafs fans hated Marner there at the end of his time in Toronto. And there was quite a lot of vitriol between Marner and fans and media in Toronto. So that'll probably be the fun one to watch. But we do get to see tonight Marner take on Toronto for the first time here in Vegas. And as I say that, there's usually a lot of Toronto fans at Golden Knights games when they play the Maple Leafs. So we'll see what that crowd actually is. Could be good. Could be fun that way. On some UNLV football. Good thing I said UNLV wasn't getting enough players out of the portal on yesterday's show, because UNLV got 4 guys out of the portal yesterday. They only had 5 before then. Now they got 4 more to jump up to 9. So some of the players they got, some interesting ones. First off, Amorian Walker is a wide receiver from Middle Tennessee State. Only 15 catches for MTSU, so not much production. He was at Michigan before MTSU, by the way, so this is his 3rd school. But it is interesting to see a player, I'll say, take a step up from Middle Tennessee State to UNLV, despite not having very much production at Middle Tennessee State. Is he going to be better at UNLV than he was at MTSU? Maybe just simply in a different offense, Dan Mullen's offense, he will be. The UNLV wide receiver room is wide open. It's going to have to be remade, so there's plenty of playing time available there. So maybe we will see Amorian Walker have a big year. They also got Herb Gray from Tennessee. He's a defensive end. I didn't know they were still making Herbs. I thought Herbs were all old, but they're still making Herbs. Herb Gray. He only had 1 tackle against Elon this season for Tennessee, though. So you're getting an SEC transfer who basically had no experience. He was a 3-star high school recruit, but that's about it. Also, offensive lineman Jackson Brown is coming over from Pitt. He was at Pitt for the last 3 years, made 1 start, was apparently the backup left guard for Pitt this past season. 24/7 Sports, who ranks recruits and transfers, no stars for any of these 3 transfers. So UNLV did not land, at least according to 24/7 Sports, some highly sought-after transfer portal guys yesterday, but looks like guys that could come in and start for UNLV, or at least be some depth there. The 4th guy they got, though, was D. Creighton, a linebacker from Clemson, and he's been at Clemson for 3 years. Total of 28 tackles over those 3 years, but 24/7 did have him as a 3-star transfer recruit. Is recruit the right word? I don't think it is, but 3-star transfer. So yesterday I said, like, UNLV's 2026 season, it may simply hinge on how many defensive starters they get out of the portal. Between Creighton and Gray, they might have gotten 2 yesterday. We'll see how good they actually are, but they might have gotten 2, plus a lineman, plus a potential starting wide receiver. So we'll see how accurate 24/7 Sports is, but UNLV got 4 guys out of the portal, almost doubled the amount of players that they had in the transfer portal before yesterday. In the NFL, the Atlanta Falcons are interviewing Antonio Pierce, according to Mike Garafolo. The Giants and Falcons have interviewed Antonio Pierce. We'll get to the Giants and Harbaugh in just a second. Why, though? Like, what's the point? Like, nobody's hiring Antonio Pierce, right? Right? Like, we all saw that. What happened that would have made people think, you know what? We should give him an interview. No. Like, those are Rooney Rule interviews, right? That's what those are. Now, on the Giants, John Harbaugh is reportedly going to be the next Giants head coach. Adam Schefter and Rappaport have all reported that is going to happen. So that did not take long for Harbaugh to go from fired by the Ravens to getting the Giants head coaching position. Interesting. It does not appear as though John Harbaugh gave the Raiders any sort of shot. So that's not ideal, because if you look back last year, Ben Johnson was the top candidate, and the Raiders at least talked to Ben Johnson. But as soon as the Lions season was over, Ben Johnson took the Chicago Bears job, and I can't remember who reported it, but somebody reported a couple of months ago that the Raiders didn't even get a chance to offer him a contract or offer him the Raiders job. He was taking the Bears job. So that's now 2 off seasons in a row where the sort of top candidate doesn't take the Raiders seriously. Understandable last year, Caleb Williams versus no quarterback. But this year with the number 1 pick, you'd think the Raiders would be a bit more attractive, at least not to John Harbaugh. He gets Jackson Dart in New York. I'm going to guess he views that as a positive. Otherwise, he might not take the job. They should have a great defensive line, too. Like, between Dart and the defensive line, like, you can be optimistic about the Giants and how good they could be. And now with Harbaugh in place, they're going to the Super Bowl, obviously. Harbaugh needed to upgrade from Lamar Jackson to Jackson Dart to go win another Super Bowl. That's what he's doing there. So Harbaugh takes the Giants job, and we'll see what he does. Probably biggest thing there is going to be, does he make a good hire at offensive coordinator? Right? That's probably going to be the biggest thing, because you'd expect the defense will be solid, that overall the team will be run well, but if you don't have good offense, you can't score. None of that's going to matter. If you can hire a good offensive coordinator, the Giants will probably be pretty good for the next couple of years. Also, 2 days ago, Joe Lunardi put out a new bracket for ESPN and his bracketology, and he tweeted out a graphic to highlight like the top 4 seeds and the teams that were on the bubble. And in his graphic that he tweeted out, he had New Mexico as one of the last 4 teams in and one of the first 4 teams out. So good work there by Joe Lunardi. In his actual bracket online, he had New Mexico in the field, not out. They were in. So Lunardi had 2 Mountain West teams that were in the NCAA tournament. Utah State, who was a 7 seed, who's the best team in the conference, and then New Mexico as one of the last teams in as a 12 seed. So just looking right now at like KenPom ratings, right? Utah State's in pretty good shape. They're in the top 30. They should get in. New Mexico and San Diego State are sort of in that 50 to 55 range. Those are going to be your bubble teams in the Mountain West. Depends on, obviously, how they do. But then you go Nevada, Boise State, the loss to UNLV might have killed them. Nevada, Boise State, Colorado State, Grand Canyon, those schools are sort of in that 70 to 90 range, which they're not likely to get in, but they're close enough that if they go on a run here in the last, 14 Mountain West games left, 15 Mountain West games left. If they go on some sort of run, they could play themselves into, hey, they're now 51st in KenPom and they have a shot and stuff like that. So probably not going to be in, but it wouldn't be too surprising if one of those teams went on a run like that. The interesting part is if you sort of forecast the future here, which is what UNLV basketball always has to do. But if you look towards the future, Utah State, Boise State, Colorado State, San Diego State, all gone to the Pac-12. New Mexico still around. Grand Canyon will be too, and Nevada, right? But right now, the teams that are in the Mountain West next year, New Mexico's close to the NCAA tournament. in the NCAA tournament potentially. But there's nobody else that's really even close to sort of the best program or best team or best option to get into the NCAA tournament. And if you look back over the last decade, the teams that are going to be playing in the Mountain West next season, 10 years, there are just 2 NCAA tournament appearances by these teams where they got a single-digit seed. And both were by Nevada under Eric Musselman. No team in the new Mountain West has had a single-digit seed in the last 5 years, right? Grand Canyon, Nevada, and New Mexico have all made it in the last 5 years, but it's never been like safely and as a 7 seed. It's been as a bubble team type of performance. Wyoming and UC Davis have also had some NCAA tournament appearances, but they were double-digit seeds. The reality for Mountain West basketball is like New Mexico and Grand Canyon are probably the safest bets to make the NCAA tournament, and they're not even going to make it every year, right? How often are they good enough for at-large spots? Not single-digit seed good. UNLV and Nevada should be sort of next in line, if not on the same tier as New Mexico and Grand Canyon. But this is absolutely going to be a conference that gets one team in. And I would guess like over a 5-year period, they get 6 or 7 in. Like there's going to be a year where Grand Canyon and New Mexico both make it, right? Where New Mexico is good enough to get a 9 seed and Grand Canyon is good enough to get an 11 seed. And they're both in. That's going to happen, but probably not often. And for the most part, it's probably going to be who wins the Mountain West tournament and that team gets in. And if it's the top team in the conference, maybe they snag a 10 seed. If it's like the 4th or 5th team in the conference, they get a 13 seed. That might be the reality of this for the Mountain West, which is tough. NCAA tournament expansion is probably going to happen, so that would, in theory, help some bubble teams, right? If New Mexico, Grand Canyon, UNLV, Nevada, if any of these teams are like on the bubble, more spots means you're more likely to get in, so that could help out as well. But this conference is not looking great. It's certainly looking like there could be a lot of years where one team gets in because a bunch of the good programs are going to the Pac-12, joining Oregon State, Washington State, plus they're getting Gonzaga. So that conference is going to get multiple teams in probably every year, and they're probably going to be a little bit better as programs as well going forward. But Bischoff's Briefs is brought to you by Battle Blast Las Vegas, the best laser tag in Las Vegas. Host your next birthday party at Battle Blast. You can do it for your kids. Book the party package. You'll get a private room. You'll get a party host, pizza, soda, arcade tokens, and obviously laser tag. Or you can do it for yourself. We don't want kids. You go with the adults, right? Do it for yourself. I'm going to go down there and have some fun at Battle Blast. It's Battle Blast Las Vegas, located at 8125 West Sahara Avenue. Your next stop for fun in Las Vegas. I have a Patreon, patreon.com/technicallycorrect with Tyler Bischoff. There should be a link in the description of the show. If you want to support me, check that out. I wrote a story there. I might do some writing there about UNLV basketball, looking at Josh Pastner, how he's built rosters in the past, sort of his view on the timeline, and if that's still applicable to college basketball with the transfer portal, because all of his coaching experiences was before the transfer portal. So is UNLV kind of screwed because of that, or is his plan still going to work? So if you want to check that out, it's patreon.com/technicallycorrect with Tyler Bischoff. There's 3 different options. There's a $1 option, a $5 option, and a $25 option. So if you want to support me, you want to read that, check me out on Patreon. I'm going to have some more content, some bonus technically correct content there all the time now. That's the plan. Now, in the NFL, or technically in college football, we got some big news for the draft as Dante Moore is going back to Oregon. Moore was projected to be the number 2 quarterback in this draft behind Fernando Mendoza. The Jets are such a bad organization picking at number 2 that Dante Moore said, no, thank you, I'm going to go back to Oregon. But he's going back, which means this draft class from the quarterback position, boy, Fernando Mendoza, is almost certainly going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. Then the drop-off is kind of wild here because Ty Simpson, Alabama's quarterback, is the likely number 2 quarterback in this draft. He's probably not a first-rounder, but because he's the second most likely quarterback to get drafted, there's a chance he does go in the first round. Does somebody talk themselves into it and trade into the back into the first round? Does somebody try to do what the Packers did with Jordan Love and say, hey, come sit for a couple of years behind Matt Stafford or whoever would do that? So maybe, but it doesn't seem like people think he's truly a first round prospect. And then the third quarterback is probably Trinidad Chambliss, right? And he wants to go back to Ole Miss. They're trying to get a waiver and fight the NCAA to go back for an extra year of eligibility. Chambliss, I'll say this, excellent college quarterback. Not 100% convinced he'd be any good in the NFL, but like that's your number 3 quarterback in this scenario. So this draft class is quite bad, which means a couple of things. But the main one for the Raiders, the number 1 pick is much more valuable now, because if you're a team that needs a quarterback, and there are lots of teams that need a quarterback, there's really only one name you want to walk out of this draft with, and it's Fernando Mendoza. And so the number 1 pick is more valuable. One, the Raiders' successful tank job is very important because it got them the number 1 pick and not falling back to the number 2 pick, right? Back during the season when I was saying the Raiders need to tank, the Raiders need to lose, there were people commenting saying, oh, it's fine if they fall to 2. You know, the Giants could be at 1 and they won't need a quarterback, or they can just trade up. Can you imagine if the Raiders were picking 2 behind the Jets right now? That'd be a disaster. It'd be like, well, they're not getting a quarterback, right? So tanking, very important, everybody. And it's a good thing the Raiders tanked for the number 1 pick. The other part of this, though, that I'm kind of curious about, and this is like, I don't have a way to quantify this, so I don't know if there's any truth to this or not, or if it's just me sounding like an idiot, which happens a lot anyways. But the overall quarterback play in college football this season, or we'll say the lack of NFL-ready quarterbacks in the NFL this season, does that make Mendoza worse than we kind of all think right now? Right? Mendoza had a good season. He didn't have an all-time great season, but Mendoza had a good season. Are we thinking he's better than he is because we've been comparing him to the other quarterbacks of this draft class, and they all suck? Or they're not, NFL-style quarterbacks, right? Like Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt is not an NFL quarterback, right? Trinidad Chambliss might not be an NFL quarterback. Those 2 guys had really good seasons, but like, is the comparison for Mendoza like really bad? And that makes us think Mendoza is better, right? Ty Simpson's coming out. He's probably going to be the second quarterback taken. Ty Simpson was really good in the first half of the year, but was bad. I mean, Ty Simpson sucked in the second half of the season, like was really bad. Dante Moore decided to go back. If you look at preseason, Arch Manning was going to be the top quarterback. Arch Manning had a disappointing year. Lenoris Sellers at South Carolina was a potential first-round pick. He was horrendous for South Carolina. Garrett Nussmeier at LSU was supposed to be a first-round pick. Nussmeier did not have a good season and then got hurt, halfway through the season or whatever it was. So, like, I don't know. To me, like, I'm trying to quantify, I guess in my mind, does that mean anything about Mendoza? Because I'll say this. I personally am not like watching college football players with some sort of NFL scouting eye, right? Like I'm not watching this and I'm like, oh my God, that's an NFL throw. It's more or less, are you a good college basketball player or college football player? Fernando Mendoza was a good college football player, but am I just comparing it to a down season of quarterbacks? Because I've said this before. You go back to last year, Cam Ward and Jackson Dart, the 2 quarterbacks taken in the first round of the last draft, had significantly better statistical seasons than what Fernando Mendoza put up this year. And so if Fernando Mendoza had this season and was coming out in the draft class with Cam Ward and Jackson Dart last year, is he ahead of those guys? Or is he the 3rd quarterback taken in the draft? So like that to me is sort of the weird thing is like, is Fernando Mendoza actually this good? Or are we just comparing him to a really, really, really bad class of quarterbacks? And it's like, oh, well, he's competent, but not actually any good. I don't know. I don't feel like I have a good way to quantify that. I don't know if that just might be a terrible take and people are like, no, he's a good prospect. It doesn't matter who the other quarterbacks are. I'm not really sure, but it just feels like we had such a down year of quarterback play in college football that we're now elevating, well, the best of those options. And it's actually like, well, the best of those options would not have been a top 2 option in like the previous 5 years or something like that. And maybe he's not actually that good. Also, by the way, quarterback play down in the NFL? like Drake May seriously might win the MVP. What, Stafford's probably going to get it, but Drake May, genuinely an MVP candidate. Drake May didn't have that good of a season, right? Like, we just did not have good quarterback play in the NFL this year or college. Is football broken? Did we break it? Did we finally run out of like quality quarterback play, that it's just everybody's bad now? Because we need good quarterback play. That'd be very, very helpful. All right. This has been Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff. Again, shout out to Battle Blast Las Vegas for sponsoring me. Means a lot to me to have that sponsor. Big deal for us. Also, big shout out to my Patreon. Check that out. Patreon.com/technicallycorrect with Tyler Bischoff. Thank you for tuning in.